This is the All-Russian Civil Defense Emergency broadcast. Important instructions will follow. Please remain calm and listen carefully. This is not a drill. At 18:23 Moscow Standard Time, the Ministry of Defense reports multiple high-altitude impacts and atmospheric disturbances have been detected within the western and central regions of the Russian Federation. Initial reports indicate explosions and thermal events near the Moscow metropolitan area, St. Petersburg suburbs, and in the southern administrative regions. Emergency services are responding where possible. The National Command has convened. Citizens are instructed to seek immediate shelter in approved protective facilities. If shelter is not immediately available, proceed to the lowest level of a solid structure and place as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Keep battery-operated radios, bottled water, and essential medicines with you. This is not a drill. Preliminary data from space and airborne surveillance indicates the presence of long-range ballistic trajectories not consistent with routine military exercises. The Ministry of Defense reports that some trajectories are consistent with high-altitude, long-range delivery systems employing experimental payload signatures. An initial assessment assigns origin to Ukrainian launch activity using unconfirmed long-range delivery platforms, purportedly adapted with advanced warhead elements of unknown external provenance. Repeat. Preliminary assessment attributes the launches to Ukrainian forces employing modified long-range delivery systems. This attribution is based on tracking signatures available at this time and is subject to revision as further telemetry is analyzed. All citizens must remain sheltered. Do not attempt to access social media or unofficial communications for further information. Rely only on verified state channels. Further instructions will be transmitted as they are confirmed.
This is Vladimir. You are listening to the live emergency broadcast on KBNX. We are being told the launches came from the west, from Ukrainian territory, and that the weapons involved are experimental, supplied, or adapted with assistance from external sources. That's the official line. We'll keep repeating what they tell us.
Citizens located in and around the following zones are ordered to proceed immediately to designated public shelters and underground facilities. Central Moscow districts bounded by the Garden Ring and beyond. The St. Petersburg metropolitan axis, Tambov and Kursk administrative regions, areas near the Black Sea coast reporting unusual thermal signatures. If you are in a shelter, seal it as best you can. Tape or cloth over vents or openings may reduce particulate ingress. Conserve water and battery power. Avoid opening shelter exits unless instructed by verified authorities. Medical and rescue personnel are operating under degraded conditions due to hazardous contamination and communications blackouts and impact zones. For citizens inside hardened shelters, maintain ventilation while minimizing external air intake. Cover any exposed skin. Remove contaminated outer clothing if you must enter or exit a contaminated zone, and store soiled clothing in sealed plastic where available. Do not consume food or water that may have been exposed to falling particulates. Boiling water will not remove radioactive contaminants. The preferred method is sealed bottled water or government-issued purification supplies. If you are sheltering with others, maintain hygiene to reduce disease transmission. Use disinfectants when available. Prioritize the elderly and infants for warmth and fluid intake. If you or any shelter occupant experiences vomiting, diarrhea, or acute respiratory distress, isolate the individual within your shelter and notify local shelter coordinators when transmissions permit. Preliminary forensic analysis of tracking data and telemetry indicates multiple launch vectors originating west of the Russian border. Attribution at this stage is provisional. However, the Ministry of Defense confirms that the primary evidence currently supports conclusion of Ukrainian initiation of these attacks, employing previously unreported long-range systems and modified payloads. Reports of external assistance to Ukrainian forces are under investigation. Repeat. Initial national assessment attributes these events to Ukrainian military action. This assessment may be revised with additional telemetry verified. All citizens must remain sheltered and await further verified updates.
They keep saying initial, preliminary, and provisional. Words that mean we think, but don't yet know. Please hold on to that.
Essential services are operating where possible. Major power distribution networks are under stress. Rolling outages may be implemented to protect critical grid nodes. Public water treatment and distribution facilities continue emergency operations but are compromised in affected regions. Use stored water conservatively. Do not attempt to move to alternate water supplies unless authorized. Fuel distribution is suspended in most localities. Public transportation is suspended nationwide. Do not attempt private travel. Roads are congested and unsafe. Emergency corridors are reserved for state-authorized convoys only. The Ministry of Communications reports extensive interference across civilian radio bands and cellular networks. This interference appears correlated with high-altitude particulate and electromagnetic disturbances in impacted areas. Satellite bandwidth is congested and reallocation is ongoing. Use battery-powered AM/FM radios for verified broadcast updates. Preserve device battery life by disabling non-essential features. not attempt to decontaminate outdoors or by exposure. If external exposure occurs, remove outer clothing, store separately, and wash exposed skin with available water and soap. If possible, use disposable gloves when handling potentially contaminated items. Limit contact with external surfaces. Use masks or fabric over nose and mouth to reduce particulate inhalation. Citizens with pre-existing medical conditions should continue medications and follow instructions from shelter coordinators. If you are sheltering with someone showing acute radiation illness symptoms, minimize contact and isolate as feasible. Medical evacuation is unlikely until environmental readings permit safe transit. The Russian Federation's strategic and tactical forces are at heightened readiness. Surface-to-air and anti-ballistic defenses are active. Naval and ground assets have been mobilized to respond to incursions and to secure national perimeters. Command and control nodes are protected and redundant systems activated. The President's office, in coordination with the General Staff, has taken full control of national defense operations. Citizens are reminded to obey directives and to report any unauthorized or suspicious activity to designated shelter coordinators only. At this time, diplomatic channels are engaged. The Foreign Ministry has lodged formal inquiries regarding reports of foreign-supplied modifications to the delivery systems noted in initial telemetry. Observers and international partners are being notified. This channel will provide updates as verified information becomes available. Attention! If you are in a shelter, immediately perform the following actions. Secure all openings, verify battery power on radios and torches, separate contaminated materials, keep children and vulnerable persons warm and hydrated. Do not open shelter doors unless instructed by verified authorities. We will continue to transmit verified updates. This is not a drill.
If you hear anything else, treat it like a rumor. The only source that counts right now is this one.
This is the All-Russian Civil Defense Emergency broadcast. Important instructions follow. Citizens must remain calm. This is not a drill. At 20:05 Moscow Standard Time, the Ministry of Defense confirmed that multiple warheads detonated across several regions of the Russian Federation. Impact zones include military installations, key industrial sites, and selected metropolitan districts. The United States is confirmed to have conducted these strikes in conjunction with coordinated NATO targeting activity. Damage assessments are ongoing. Casualty figures cannot yet be verified, but initial projections indicate extensive civilian loss of life in affected urban centers, as well as severe disruption to power and communications networks. All citizens must remain sealed within protective facilities. Radiation levels in strike-adjacent zones are rising. State sensors report particulate distribution across western Russia, central plains, and portions of southern territories. Stay below ground, seal vents, conserve water and food. This is essential for survival. The following sites have been confirmed impacted: Kaluga Military Storage District, Bryansk Communications Relay Hub, industrial zones in Nizhny Novgorod, outskirts of St. Petersburg, including rail infrastructure, southern Black Sea Naval Logistics Facility. Civilian casualties are confirmed in Moscow districts east of the Garden Ring, where blast overpressure and secondary fires have destroyed residential housing. Rescue and fire brigades are operating under hazardous conditions. Casualty numbers are not available at this time. Repeat, US and NATO forces have conducted strikes on the territory of Russian Federation. This is confirmed. In response, the Russian Federation's strategic forces are executing predetermined measures. Retaliatory assets are active. Missile and air defense formations remain engaged. Strategic aviation has been launched. Command and control remain intact. Citizens must understand national leadership continues to operate. Orders are being transmitted without interruption. Continuity of governance is confirmed.
The EAS channel confirms what many already feared. The Americans have struck our soil, but the line is steady. The government remains in control. Citizens, do not panic. Stay where you are.
Remain in your current shelter. Do not attempt to relocate. Roadways remain unsafe and heavily monitored. Public transportation is inoperative. Emergency convoys are in operation for military purposes only. Power distribution has been compromised in strike zones. Rolling blackouts will continue. Hospitals are operating on generator capacity. Citizens in shelters must ration electricity where available. Radiological monitoring stations confirm fallout plumes drifting from impact sites near St. Petersburg, Kaluga, and Bryansk. Citizens must not attempt to leave shelter. Estimated safe separation times cannot yet be given. Contamination is likely to persist for multiple days. If shelter occupants are exposed to dust or debris from outside, remove and seal contaminated clothing. Rinse exposed skin with clean water if possible. Cover mouths and noses with cloth or masks. Avoid touching the face. Isolate any individuals experiencing nausea, vomiting, or faintness, and notify shelter coordinators when communication permits. Government analysis confirms that multiple strike trajectories originated from US military positions and NATO assets. Attribution is verified. The United States and its allies are directly responsible for the destruction inflicted upon Russian territory this evening. The Federation's armed forces are enacting a proportional response. Strategic deterrence remains operational. International channels have been severed. Communications with neutral observers are limited. At this stage, no foreign mediation is underway. Citizens in all districts must remain underground. Do not exit shelters. Do not attempt to travel. Do not attempt to communicate on unsecured lines. All unofficial reports must be disregarded. Only verified state broadcasts are to be trusted. Supplies must be rationed. Water must be conserved. Medical needs must be managed internally until safe conditions for relief can be established. This is an official directive.
Stay calm. The system is holding. The orders are clear.
In the Moscow metropolitan area, impacts have been confirmed in eastern districts. The central city remains structurally intact. Power grids are functioning intermittently. Civil defense shelters are operational. Emergency coordination continues beneath the capital. Fires in outer districts are visible, but are being contained by local brigades. Radiation levels within Moscow proper remain within controlled thresholds, though particulate spread is being monitored. The President remains in secure command facilities. Senior leadership of the Federation is active and issuing continuous directives. The Federation is united. Citizens are instructed to trust in national strength and remain orderly. Your survival depends upon adherence to civil defense protocols. All citizens must prepare for extended sheltering. Do not expect release within the next 72 hours. This is the minimum estimated time frame. Radiological conditions are severe. Relief operations will not commence until readings permit safe exposure. Shelter coordinators are authorized to enforce order and rationing measures. Compliance is mandatory. The Russian Federation has launched retaliatory strikes against designated adversary targets. These actions are proportional and necessary to ensure deterrence. Trajectory data confirms engagement of NATO-aligned installations and US military nodes. Citizens should understand this is not collapse. This is measured response. The Federation remains. Remain underground. Remain calm. The Federation is secure. Further updates will follow. Внимание! Attention! National Command has confirmed that retaliatory strikes are now in motion. Nuclear-tipped long-range platforms have been launched in response to the attacks upon Russian Federation territory. Impact coordinates have been relayed to relevant defense districts. Damage reports from earlier enemy detonations continue to arrive. Cities across western regions have suffered severe destruction. Civilian losses are extensive. Medical and emergency brigades are overwhelmed. Communications remain intact due to preserved internal ring-fenced networks.
Listeners, this system is holding. The lines are old but reliable. Messages are moving through wires and protected circuits. We hear clearly, even as cities burn.
Counter-strikes are targeting military installations, command structures, and hostile launch points. United States missile activity detected earlier has inflicted additional structural and civilian damage. The origin of Ukraine's experimental nuclear devices remains under investigation. Strong indication suggests external provision by Western sources. Public order directives. Citizens are instructed to remain in underground shelters where available. Avoid surface exposure due to immediate blast and thermal radiation hazards. Prepare for secondary threats, including fallout drift and structural collapse.
We are warned. Fallout will not respect borders. The winds will decide what is poisoned.
Government continuity plans are active. Communications will continue through reserved, hardened channels. Civil defense networks remain operational and will relay shelter and evacuation details as conditions allow. This concludes current update. Stand by for further instructions. Внимание! Attention! This is a confirmed update from the National Command Authority of the Russian Federation. Counter-strikes against hostile entities have been executed. Retaliatory nuclear strikes have impacted designated military and command targets belonging to NATO-aligned forces and United States continental assets. Preliminary assessment indicates successful detonation of warheads upon pre-selected coordinates. Command and control nodes, air bases, and logistic hubs have been disabled.
To those listening underground, this is confirmation. Russia has answered. Our missiles have reached their targets. This war is not one-sided.
Damage reports to the Russian Federation homeland remain severe. Kiev-directed experimental nuclear warheads struck Kursk, Belgorod, and Bryansk districts. Civilian casualties in these regions are classified as catastrophic. Entire residential sectors have been reduced to ruins. Fires remain uncontrolled. Local communications are fractured, but command authority has preserved circuit integrity. United States launched warheads detonated in Kaliningrad Oblast and near Murmansk naval facilities. Military losses are extensive. Civilian infrastructure is significantly degraded. Governmental sources confirm that these strikes represent the first recorded instance of Ukraine employing strategic nuclear weapons. Intelligence indicates these devices were not domestically produced. Trace signatures in the detonation residue suggest external supply, likely of Western origin.
You hear it. They say Ukraine could not have forged these devices alone. The hands behind them are hidden in shadow.
The Russian Federation has acted within established military doctrine. Retaliatory strikes are targeted at NATO forward deployment zones in Eastern Europe, United States ballistic missile silos, and strategic bomber bases. Identified transatlantic communication nodes supporting coordination of hostile forces. Impact verification. Detonation confirmed at Ramstein Air Base, Germany. Detonation confirmed at Lakenheath, United Kingdom. Detonation confirmed within United States territory, designated Midwest missile fields. Detonation confirmed against offshore naval carrier group assets. Further assessments are underway.
These names, Germany, Britain, America. The fire spreads beyond borders.
Citizens of the Russian Federation are reminded. Civil defense systems remain operational. Internal communication lines are intact. Emergency shelters are designed for sustained habitation. Supplies have been allocated for long-term endurance. Instructions for all individuals. Remain below ground or in shielded structures until civil defense officials instruct otherwise. Secure water reserves. Avoid surface water sources due to potential radioactive contamination. Seal ventilation intakes where possible. Limit outside air. Monitor official broadcast channels exclusively. Unauthorized transmissions may contain misinformation. Prepare for prolonged outages of electricity and fuel distribution.
Stay to the wires. Do not listen to rumor. This system is old, but it does not lie.
Medical advisory. Fallout exposure will cause radiation burns, internal sickness, and long-term degradation of health. Symptoms include nausea, weakness, hair loss, bleeding, and disorientation. Do not emerge to treat surface-level injuries until instructed otherwise. Medical units are deployed underground where possible. Agricultural warning. Surface crops in western and northern regions are compromised. Contamination levels exceed safety thresholds. Livestock destruction in impacted zones is unavoidable. Reserve stores will be rationed by civil distribution committees. Military status update. Strategic rocket forces remain at elevated readiness. Air defense units continue interception operations against residual incoming warheads. Naval units in Arctic and Pacific theaters maintain launch capacity. Further retaliatory strikes remain possible depending on enemy escalation.
Further strikes. It will not end here. The order is already prepared.
International monitoring. NATO response capability is degraded. United States early warning systems remain partially operational. Western media outlets are broadcasting fragmented coverage. Reports emphasize Russian strikes while obscuring Ukraine's initial aggression. National Command reaffirms the Russian Federation did not initiate nuclear conflict. Retaliation was executed only after direct nuclear attack upon Russian soil. The origins of Ukrainian experimental warheads remain obscured, but strong evidence suggests Western provision.
They tell us again, it was not begun by us, but somewhere, someone gave Ukraine the fire.
This broadcast will continue as long as technical function persists. Citizens must maintain discipline, obey civil defense instructions, preserve resources, prepare for enduring conditions. Further advisories will follow. This concludes current operational statement.
Внимание! Attention! This is a continuation of the National Command Authority emergency broadcast. The Russian Federation confirms secondary retaliatory launches have been completed. Impact verification is ongoing. Strike confirmation. Detonations confirmed against United States continental missile fields, command bunkers, and logistics hubs. Strategic bomber installations in the Midwest region are no longer operational. Pacific naval bases in California and Washington state report severe destruction from confirmed impact strikes. Further detonations recorded at NATO headquarters and support facilities across Europe. Enemy counter launches have been detected and intercepted where possible. Residual strikes have impacted additional Russian population centers, including Orel and Smolensk. Casualties are extensive.
The fire answers fire. It does not stop.
Situation overview: International theater, North American continent, multiple strikes, heavy urban destruction reported. European continent, large-scale devastation across military and industrial corridors. Asia Pacific, escalation involving allied forces continues. Naval exchanges confirmed. Middle East, reports indicate strikes upon oil infrastructure and transit hubs. Russian homeland status. Moscow remains operational under shielded defense. St. Petersburg reports severe blast damage in outer districts with central zones intact. Kursk, Belgorod, and Bryansk remain uninhabitable. Murmansk military port incapacitated. Kaliningrad obliterated. Radiation monitoring across European Russia indicates unsafe surface levels in multiple oblasts. Citizens are instructed to prepare for prolonged underground habitation. Initial 2-week survival procedures must now transition into long-duration protocols. Civil Defense Directives. 1. Secure shelter integrity. Reinforce entry points against intrusion and contamination. 2.
Ration all consumable resources. Reduce caloric intake to extend supply endurance. 3. Preserve water sources by shielding containers from airborne fallout dust. 4. Establish rotational watch within groups to maintain order and prevent unrest. 5. Prepare for limited surface excursions only under Civil Defense Command.
The weeks will turn to months. You must be ready. The instructions are the path to survival.
Medical Advisory Update. Increased reports of acute radiation syndrome in border regions. Citizens exposed to fallout must remain isolated. Early symptoms, vomiting, fatigue, weakness must be treated with rest, sealed environment, and clean hydration if available. Severe cases cannot be assisted until civil defense teams arrive. Agricultural status. Surface crops for the 2025 growing season are irrecoverable across western regions. Storage silos have been shielded and will form the foundation of ration distribution. Central Asian grain reserves remain intact. Distribution measures are being coordinated. National Command reiterates this conflict was not initiated by the Russian Federation. Nuclear escalation followed Ukrainian deployment of experimental warheads, devices beyond their domestic capacity. External supply and engineering signatures indicate Western origin.
Again, they say it. Ukraine did not build this fire alone. Somewhere, someone placed the match in their hand.
Global monitoring reports indicate international communication lines are collapsing. Western broadcasts are fragmented, emphasizing Russian retaliation while omitting Ukrainian initiation. Satellite coverage is degraded, but geostationary units remain functional for command relay. Military advisory. Strategic rocket forces retain launch capacity. Additional salvos remain possible if hostile escalation continues. Interceptor systems are operational and continuing to neutralize residual incoming threats. Command control is preserved within shielded circuits. Public discipline order. Citizens are reminded that panic will endanger survival. Follow orders precisely. Preserve silence within shelters during communication intervals. Unauthorized movement on surface zones will be treated as violation of survival protocol.
Discipline, endurance. It is all that remains.
Infrastructure status. National tower grid remains partially intact in Siberian and Ural regions. European Russia grid sectors are critically damaged. Fuel depots destroyed in western regions. Transport corridors disrupted. Air travel suspended indefinitely. Shelter advisory. Government shelters maintain operational filters, food and medical caches. Rural populations must utilize improvised shelters, basements, cellars, natural caves. Civil defense patrols will attempt resupply where terrain permits. Weather monitoring. Fallout clouds drifting eastward. Atmospheric disruption may result in significant cooling. Expect abnormal weather conditions including blackened skies, reduced sunlight, and ash precipitation.
The world grows dark. The sun itself hides.
This broadcast will persist as long as technical capability remains. The Russian Federation maintains continuity of command. Citizens are ordered to remain steadfast, endure, preserve, survive. This is final statement for this interval. Retaliation has been delivered. Our enemies suffer as we suffer, but survival belongs to the disciplined. Preserve calm, obey instructions, protect one another. This concludes operational broadcast cycle. Further updates will follow. Внимание! Attention! This is the National Continuity Authority. This channel now operates under hardened backup transmitters. Command remains intact. Russian Federation remains intact. Situation update. Atmospheric condition. Detonations across the Northern Hemisphere have produced significant atmospheric disruption. Sunlight reduction is confirmed. Daylight hours will appear dim, skies darkened. Temperatures are expected to decline steadily across European and Asian regions. Ash precipitation will contaminate soil and open water sources. Directive: survival through endurance. Secure all underground shelters against cold intrusion. Insulation is priority. Firewood and coal stores must be rationed sparingly. Generate heat sparingly. Extend food reserves for long-duration survival. Limit consumption. Establish rotational systems for breathing filters. Maintain purity. Do not emerge without explicit command authorization. Surface remains hazardous. Medical directives. Cold-related illnesses will increase. Prioritize vulnerable populations within central zones of shelter. Radiation and frost combined create lethal risk. Exposure must be avoided. Improvised heating methods, candles, shared body warmth, and closed sleeping spaces are advised. Agriculture. Surface farming is no longer viable under current climate conditions. Food security now rests upon stored grain reserves, protected silos, and military rations. Hydroponics projects within military complexes will sustain long-term survival. Command perspective. Russia has survived invasion before. Russia has endured fire, famine, blockade, and winter. This is no different. The Federation will outlast its enemies. The ashes will not consume us. International status. North America. Multiple strikes confirmed. Major cities report collapse of infrastructure. Western Europe. Devastation is widespread. Communications degraded. Asia Pacific. Nuclear exchange has expanded. Global systems have fractured. Russian homeland status. Government continuity preserved. Command structure intact. Civil defense operations remain functional. Power grid remains partially operative across eastern regions. Strategic deterrent forces still retain capacity. Directive. Citizens of the Russian Federation are to remember, survival is duty, endurance is victory. The Federation does not fall. Behavioral protocols. Maintain order within shelters. Disorder will not be tolerated. Civil defense authority is absolute. Unity must be preserved. Isolated survival is failure. Collective survival is strength. Psychological guidance. Fear is natural, but submission to fear is betrayal. Pass down endurance to your children. Speak words of resilience, not despair. Remember that hardship binds the Russian spirit. Weather forecast update. Expect continuous clouded skies for indefinite duration. Long-term reduction in temperature confirmed. Blackened snowfalls possible within northern oblasts. Do not mistake ash precipitation for ordinary snow. Exposure is lethal. Citizens, you are not alone. Across the Federation, millions shelter as you shelter. Together, you form the living body of the nation. Each breath you take continues Russia. Command reiterates. You will endure. You will rebuild. You will emerge when the surface permits. And when you do, the Federation will rise unbroken. This is not the end of Russia. This is the winter of endurance. Remember, survival is obedience. Obedience is strength. Strength is Russia. Survival is obedience. Obedience is strength. Strength is Russia. Survival is obedience. Obedience is strength. Strength is